Hello, Abigail here, and I wanted to talk about spirit babies. And you say, Abigail, what are spirit babies? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, spirit babies are the spirits of the souls entering into the world, obviously through conception. Spirit baby work is often oriented around conception, fertility, um, anything to do with having babies. I have some exceptions for that, which I will talk about later, but it is about bringing new souls in and letting them be supportive and helping both the birthers and the soul communicate and connect. Some people come to me because they know it is the right time and they are ready to communicate and commune with their spirit baby and to move forward with that energy and to head towards conception. Some people come because they are currently pregnant and they would like to talk to their spirit baby. They feel like something's wrong, or they feel that little psychic tapping on the psychic door that spirit babies often do, where they're like, knock, knock, I need to talk to you. Or they're having issues and troubles with conception and conceiving. Little trigger warning here, a lot of, not a lot of in my practice, but oftentimes in general spirit baby practice, we can be dealing with things like miscarriages, abortions, stuff like that. And so, working with spirit babies as a medium, it's my job to help digest and process and communicate the energy that is present, either the energy that needs to be discussed or is holding someone back. The exception that I have is I do think people who do not want to have spirit babies should reach out to a medium if they feel led, um, because spirit babies don't always know or understand how to basically how to take no. They're not being rude about it. Excuse me. Sorry, I keep saying this, but I have digestive problems and they show up in these videos, so we might as well accept them. Um, because spirit babies often want to reincarnate with someone, and that someone may not feel as if that is something they want to do in this life. That person should 100% not conceive if they do not want to. But if they are feeling like they want to move on with things like medical procedures to prohibit having babies, then, but they feel like something's holding them back that's not quite them, that could be a spirit baby. And talking to that spirit baby, the goal is not to make you want to have children or the person want to have children. The goal is to allow that spirit baby to understand your reasons for not wanting to bring them into this world. Um, and this also goes for abortions as well. I'll talk about that in a second, but it allows you, if you feel like you have a few things left to do before you go completely child free and take really physical permanent steps for that, to say goodbye to the spirit. It also allows the spirit to reincarnate with someone else. If they really want to connect with you in this lifetime, they will find a way. And that might be conception with another family. Doesn't mean they don't have, connections with the people they now, are in conception with. But they will also have a tie to you. And we see this all the time. You don't only have karmic ties with your family. In my practice, what is the most prevalent? What are the things I work through most with spirit babies? Karmic ties, past life ties, past life issues. Other spirit babies do too. Mediums do this too. It's a very common theme. I'm not the only person who does this. It's just very prevalent and relevant. Very specifically working through past life stories to allow the spirit baby to connect and to communicate and to express and release fears around conception, especially if they have a really complex relationship with one or both of their parents. If it is a single parent household, then, that parent and maybe someone they are connected to. So there's a lot that we discuss and break down. How I do it is I get past life visions from the spirit baby, and then I give them to the parent in the session and we discuss things. Also, I ask questions because spirit babies don't always give one-to-one answers. They kind of give you nudges. Like if a spirit baby is really apprehensive and worried, I will ask questions about what's going on in the home, how the conceiving couples, if it is a couple, the conceiving couple's, relationship is going. That can be something that really weighs heavily on a spirit baby. They're not omniscient, so they don't know everything that's going on, but they can feel unstable energy. They can sense fighting. They can sense struggles. Some spirit babies don't care. Obviously, this is kind of a niche group of spirit babies because babies are born all the time that come for these things. But yeah, those things can be concerning. Some spirit babies are really like, I don't like the place you live. There are many reasons why spirit babies come, and they communicate in many different ways. Some of the ways they communicate are through visions. Some of them speak directly. Um, some, like, you can hear them physically talk and you get a tone of voice, and some psychically communicate. The way this most often happens is you'll ask a question and immediately get an answer. It's not a conversation, it's like a layering of responses. Um, Also, can see this is an important part of spirit baby work. Like I said, I'm not sure what every other spirit baby medium's experience is, but like I can see their aura, and it's more of an identification aura. It's not the auras that like change and shift per se. They can have some shifts getting darker and lighter, but they generally are a consistent um, pairing of colors for me. And it helps me identify the energy of the spirit baby. You'd know which spirit baby I'm talking to because there can be multiple. Um, it also, I had a family where I pulled up their auras, and it was interesting because every child had one of the parents' aura in them. So, like, I think the dad was green and yellow, and the mom was like pink and orange. I'm not quite, I can't quite remember. But every single child had orange, pink, green, or yellow in their aura. And it showed this really kind of beautiful auric connection. All of them have some similar bond, which is not always the case. Sometimes you get spirit babies that come in groups, which often does happen. A belief in spirit baby mediumship is that the oldest child, if you have multiple kids, often brings in siblings from past life connections, which is why you get a lot of really interesting sibling relationships in general, because that oldest child is bringing them in for better or for worse. Once in a blue moon, you can get kind of a spirit baby who just there's that kind of main cohort, and then that kind of final spirit baby jumps in the mix, and you can see that in child dynamics where that last child just doesn't have the same connection to their siblings. It's not horrible. They can build connections in this lifetime. They probably do have past life connections. It's just not the same quality or type as those previous siblings. So there's a lot of things that you understand and can um, digest and process with spirit baby stuff. A really frequent question that I get about spirit babies is like, do spirit babies pick their parents knowing everything? And this concept of a soul contract, which is prevalent in a lot of things. It's prevalent in evolutionary astrology, which I also study. Um, and I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't believe in soul contracts. I find them to be very Judeo Christian and very victim blamey. This idea that somehow a human soul knows every single horrible thing that is going to happen to them and then they sign off on it just doesn't sit right with me. I have watched infants die, and the cries are not the cries of a soul that signed off. And then there's the argument like, well, you forget everything when you come through the thing. And that doesn't make sense either, because plenty of souls remember past life things. The kind of general rule is most souls remember past life memories up until about 7, and then they tend to lose them. Some people carry them in further on in life. But I don't believe in soul contracts. Spirit babies usually have a few very specific agendas that they want, and those create kind of tunnel vision for them. So maybe there is turmoil and upset in the home, but they're so focused on reconnecting with a very specific person in their family that they're like, it'll be fine. And they just push through. Many spirit babies, especially the ones I work with, are very specifically wanting to reincarnate with a specific parent. It is not always the birthing parent. Does not mean that the birthing parent doesn't have a strong past life connection at all. That's just not how that works. However, the other parent, or maybe a grandparent or a sibling, has what I call the critical karmic connection, the karmic connection that the soul wants and has to work on in this next life. And it can create a lot of conflict in the spirit baby because a lot of times those critical connections come from trauma, I've seen spirit babies who desperately want to reconnect with a specific soul, but that soul, while they may not have betrayed them, that soul may have abandoned them multiple times in past lives, and the spirit baby really wants and believes that soul is not going to do that again, but they don't know. And so we have to find a way to work through that and to confirm, and also to, remind the spirit baby that, things can happen again and it's not their fault. And sometimes we just have to come and do the thing regardless. The primary karmic bond doesn't, that other soul doesn't always want to or agree to do that connection. And this happens not just in spirit baby work, this happens in past life work as well, where the souls, it doesn't matter. If you come in to do a specific karmic work with another soul, that soul has to consent. Obviously this happens usually subconsciously, but if they are not consenting, you have to let them go. You have to let them do what they want to do. And it's really hard for spirit babies to be okay with that because, they are, even if they've had multiple past lives in this current iteration as a spirit baby, they are very young and very focused and driven. Not all spirit babies. Sometimes you do get a spirit baby with like tons of perspective and, being like, yeah, I know how things can work. I just want to confirm a couple things. But a lot of them are just like rare and to go, especially the souls that connect like prior to conception, prior to parents even having a baby or even considering one. I've had people come in and be like, well, we didn't really want another kid, but we've been talking about it so much. We thought it must be our spirit baby. So, just know that spirit babies aren't consenting to everything. You as a soul are not responsible for the abuse that other people enact on you. And it's really important to recognize that and not blame yourself. And that is something that I often remind spirit babies because sometimes they do internalize responsibility. And I remind them that it's not their job and it's not their fault what has happened in the past. Some spirit babies struggle to reincarnate because of past mistakes or past traumas as well, and that's a discussion we have with the people who wish to conceive in order to, be like, how can you comfort and assure within your own limitations as a human, the spirit baby that, X, Y, and you're not going to repeat X, Y, and Z. Something that happens but rarely happens in spirit baby work is every once in a while, and I'm not sure if anyone else who's a spirit baby medium has experienced this. Every once in a while, and this doesn't happen often, a child who has passed recently, not as an older child, but usually right after conception, will almost immediately turn around and want to be reconceived and reincarnated. This is rare, it's complicated, but it does happen. Kind of going back to what I was saying I would cover earlier with abortions and miscarriages, which I think has been a great comfort to me, and it doesn't change the grieving that the body does or the grieving that the parents do. But with those things, if a child, excuse me, if a fetus miscarries or is aborted, the soul doesn't die, doesn't go through the death process. It does if it makes it out of the birth canal, which is why I said it's rare for a child who makes it through conception and then dies a few hours or a few days after birth to come back and reincarnate. It does happen. That's a very determined soul, and it's a very intense soul that's coming through. So just so you know, doesn't always happen, can happen. I had one recently. I was like, oh my gosh, this is why you're afraid, but you're determined. But when you have an abortion or miscarriage, oftentimes, not always, that, especially with miscarriages, that is the spirit baby ending the process because they are afraid or concerned or something doesn't feel right in the birther. They are worried about their health or the birther's health. It can also just be fear from past life stuff, fear about the situation their parent might be in. Um, it can also just be a timing thing where they were like, yes, let's go. And then they're like, oh, this just doesn't feel right. So I just want, anyone who's experienced that to take a little comfort. If you believe in these things, you don't have to. That soul just went back to wait. And I've talked to a lot of parents who have had miscarriages, or even abortions, and they're like, yeah, that soul came back when I finally had my child. Now on to abortions. There's nothing wrong with getting an abortion. You should if you need to. That is a part of honestly, even if you never become a parent and you get an abortion, that is a part of being a parent, is knowing when the right time is for you and your child to be together. Um, and sometimes it is not the right time, and it is whatever works for you. I think the only issue that it tends to happen with abortions is that sometimes because the soul is ready to come in, they don't understand why you stop them. And so something that you might need to do down the road, not always, because sometimes they do understand. They're like, "Oh, I kind of see your point of view," even though I wanted to come, you know, down the road. Um, you might have to go back and be like, "Hey, I just wasn't ready. Hey, the timing wasn't right. Hey, I didn't have a stability to have you." Whatever the reasons were, coming in and communicating to that spirit baby that they weren't unwanted, that it was just the timing of it. And this can be if you don't ever want to have kids. You can also do this, but if you do want to conceive, you may have to go back in and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Um, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't because of you, though. Also, I would love for you to come." And then you can build a bond based on that, recognizing that even though it was the right thing to do, that it did make that other soul feel unwanted. And like I said, that's not their fault. That's not your fault. So, abortions are not bad things. They just stop the process. And sometimes you're going to have to go back and kind of talk about it. If you don't want to ever have kids and you've had one, but you still feel that need, you can still have that conversation and say, "Hey, I'm just not ready in this lifetime. Please feel free to reincarnate as you need." But please don't wait for me because I'm not going to do that in this lifetime. Um, so yeah, that's kind of me, my little info dump about spirit babies. There's so much more that happens. Like I said, I don't believe in soul contracts. I will say a lot of spirit babies, before I sign off, are really pragmatic. Some of them are literally like, "I am here because I didn't have money last time and you have the resources I need." Now, usually there's a past life connection, but it's not always something as dire as like, well, not dire, but as intense as parent child. It can literally be they met you in periphery, you were a next door neighbor, you were a teacher, you were someone who was kind to them once, and they want to reincarnate with you. It can be that you were kind to them once, or they knew you in a past life kind of vaguely, and now you have some money and they're like, "Hey, I was, not taken care of in my other lives, and I feel like you can take care of me." Um, and it's not greedy. They just know that they don't have the stamina as a soul to constantly be starving and to constantly be alone. And I get a lot of that with spirit baby children where they're like, "I have not had food before and I really need to be in a home where there is food and you always have a full pantry." Um, I think a story from the book by Walter McKitchen, who's the person who started this mediumship and made the main connection with the angels and spirits who work with it, was like one kid just wanted to learn the piano and was like, "You have one." And we kind of knew each other. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to play the piano because I've always wanted to learn to play the piano. So it's not always that serious. I find, like I said, with my clients, that it does tend to be multi layers. And the more, and this happens in past life work too, the more layers you pull back, the more lives you find. There's just kind of primary and critical ones that need to be touched on first. And then there's more dynamic, varies of dynamic as you go down because most souls have a long list of past lives. Anyways, this was my little info dump about spirit babies. If you want to ask me any questions, pop them in the comments. You can find me on other platforms or you can DM or email me. One of those ways you can do that is on my website, thekeenwitch.com. So, yeah, this is something that's very near and dear to me. I will continue to talk about it a little more. Eventually, I will talk about the process for becoming a spirit baby medium and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, if you want a resource, really the only book that I've been able to find on it is by Walter McKitchen, which is Spirit Babies. I think The Child You Were Meant to Have, something like that. I'm dyslexic. I don't remember titles very well. But that's a great book. It's a great resource for people wanting to become spirit baby mediums and also for parents. He has a lot of great exercises and things to connect and to ground and to communicate with your spirit baby, even if you're not a medium. Great resource. Anyways, I love you all. If this piqued your interest, stick around. I will be talking about it more. And if you want to know more about a specific topic or aspect of this work, you can always pop a comment and I will make a video response or kind of make it a jumping point for a video response. Anyways, my loves, I will see you in a different space and time. Have a beautiful day.